Assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Husain. We're back for another video. It's been a while since him and I reunited, so we're back again. So the reason why I'm calling the shots today is because off camera I was talking about a lot of questions that I'm sure other people were asking about what makes a divorce attorney and what makes a good one. So I had a bunch of questions for him, so I thought might as well capture this on video because I'm sure other people are asking the same questions. So here we are.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, I think we're gonna call this one "Confessions of a Divorce Attorney."
I like it.
Yeah, boy. So let's dive right in. I mean, there's some good questions we were talking about earlier. So
Yeah.
it's past midnight, by the way. So hopefully that'll open me up a little bit.
Yeah. So one question that I wanted to ask off the bat to a divorce attorney is, oftentimes we hear the stereotype that men get screwed over in the court system, right, in the justice system. So I want to ask you, what's the difference for you to defend a woman versus defending a male? Like, is there any difference there?
Yeah, I mean, there's actually a very, very big difference. I mean, personally speaking, it's actually easier, I would say, for the most part, to represent a guy, right? And the thing is that it's funny that you're saying defending a guy and defending a woman. I mean, that's more like criminal terminology, right? Mm-hmm. But in a divorce case, you're representing a man or you're representing a woman. And the difference is that you kind of are defending a man and you are representing a woman. What do I mean? Most of the time, you're on the offense when you're representing a woman, and you're on the defense when you're representing a man, for the most part. Again, there's always exceptions to the rules. And so I find it easier actually to represent men because they're on the defensive, and you kind of start off that way too. When you have that first consultation, they kind of know already that they're going to get quote-unquote screwed, right? They're going to lose their property. They're going to pay child support. They're going to pay alimony. They're going to be the ones to have visitation. And so when you're able to kind of set that up front and then you're able to beat their expectations, the client is happy. In a bad situation, they're happy with you because you help them accomplish something. Whereas women, they're on the offensive usually, right? They're the ones who are trying to seek as much money as possible. They're trying to get property. They're trying to, limit the guy from seeing the kids, for example. So the expectations are very different for the guy and the girl. And a lot of times the girls may not end up as happy because the other side is not as green as they thought it would be, right? They think that the guy's never going to see the kid, or they think that they're going to get the entire house, or they think they're going to get all of his money. And so they usually end up a little bit, dissatisfied. Not dissatisfied, but I think maybe they had a bad output or a bad thought of how the divorce is really going to end up. So honestly, it's much easier to represent a guy. And the other thing too is that, kind of the way that you approach problem solving, right? So as a guy, I think logically, and that's why you would hire a lawyer, right? You want to hire a lawyer because they think logically while you are thinking emotionally. And I can almost kind of talk a guy through it and say, look, man, yeah, I can get you this, but it's going to cost you X amount of money, X amount of time, and the ROI on that doesn't look good. Whereas for many women, again, there's exceptions, but that's not necessarily the goal. The goal is not the black and white, the ROI. Sometimes it's emotion based, or sometimes it's revenge or spite based. I mean, guys and girls both, but for the most part, it's the girl a lot of times is going after or seeking revenge because the guy cheated on her, or whatever else they may have done.
Sure. So what are some examples of a win that a guy might face in a case? So I'm guessing time with kids or money saved. So what are some examples that you've seen where a man feels like they won in a case?
Yeah, I think, that's exactly what it is, because we're so taught, and it's true, that guys usually get the short side of the stick, right? So, they'll be paying thousands of dollars in alimony and child support. And so usually what I try to do is at the consultation is I try to talk about the worst case scenario, right? And to kind of set the expectations in a way that, look, we know, everybody knows that you have an uphill battle, okay? The court systems, the judges, just the way that the law is written may not favor you, and there might not be a presumption for you. So that's the understanding. And so if we go through the case, we're able to get, let's say, additional time with the kids than you thought you would get. Or you're able to save some money, or we're able to come up with some unique situation where, like, in the long run, you're saving money. I think that's really a win. And also getting the case over with, right? that stress of the case just being open is very stressful, and just getting it done in a way where, okay, I'm not 100% happy, I'm 90% happy, but at least it's done. For sure. So I would say that's a win.
Gotcha. So when it comes to a win, I was pretty shook when I heard about this answer from you. So what does it mean when a lawyer wins a case? And if a lawyer does win a case, is there any benefit to them? Is there a bonus or a payout? Is there some type of extra recognition they get? What is a win to a lawyer?
So it depends on which area of the law, right? Like personal injury. I think everybody thinks of personal injury when they think of lawyers, right? They think of, okay, this guy got a settlement and he's going to get 1/3. And because he won that case and he got $1 million, that's a win. And now you're going to get 33% or, $300,000 from that $1 million settlement. But that only really applies to those types of cases. In divorce law, it's not like that. In divorce law, we're actually not allowed to charge a contingency based. We have to charge hourly or a flat rate. And so for me, whether you quote unquote win or lose, you're still getting paid based off the amount of time that you put into the case. So no, there's no bonus for winning. And it's very difficult in divorce case to even say that somebody won, right? What is winning? I think it's a lose-lose situation in divorce. No one's really winning anything. And so no, there's definitely no extra money at the end of a case if you did a good job or anything like that.
That's fascinating. Yeah. So win or loss, still same amount of money basically.
Yeah, same amount of money. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So another thing I wanted to ask you was, how much are you collaborating with the opposing attorney? So you being a defense attorney for a case, how often are you communicating with the prosecutor, if at all?
Yeah, again, the defense attorney, prosecutor, that's really criminal terminology, right? So in a criminal case is when a prosecutor is going after a defendant, and the defense attorney is defending the defendant. In family law, it's not like that. Actually, it's petitioner and respondent, right? But to answer your question, in divorce cases, if you are a good divorce attorney and the other side has a good divorce attorney, you're actually collaborating a lot, right? Lawyers are trying to resolve the case without the judge making a decision. A good lawyer settles cases. A good lawyer does not take every single issue to the judge and have the issue decided by a judge. A good lawyer is going to know that, look, if we go to hearing on this case, you're going to pay $1,000. So if I can make it a way where I could get you to pay $950, then you need to take the deal, right? And so a good lawyer settles cases. And there's many lawyers that I work with on a regular basis, right? There's not too many Muslim divorce attorneys, and there's not too many divorce attorneys to deal with in general. And so you do come across the same lawyers over and over again. And so you develop a relationship, you develop an understanding of how they practice law, and you're able to kind of resolve cases on your own. Like there's times where like I'll pick up the phone and I have like 3 cases with this person. So we'll talk about each case. Okay, this is the problem that I have. This is what my client wants. This is what my client needs. And they'll say the same thing. And we try to come up with creative solutions where we could try to make both of our clients happy. So there is actually a lot of collaboration. The problem really is when there's non-divorce attorneys who try to do divorce cases and are new lawyers, and they'll come out like aggressive and they don't want to settle and they want to go to the court and hearing for every little issue. And at the end of the day, they end up losing a lot more money, a lot more time, and take a lot more effort to get to the same result.
Wow. So, yeah, I didn't realize there was so much collaboration between you and the other attorney.
Yeah.
So, when people think that they settled, usually people assume that that's a loss. But that seems to be the ideal case for all parties, huh?
Yeah, of course. Because think about taking a decision and having a judge make a decision is very expensive. Yeah. Like, okay, child support. It's a calculation. You plug in your income, there's going to be a child support number. Like, why do we have to spend $3,000 preparing exhibits and preparing, an argument and coming to court and having the judge decide what we know what the judge is going to decide? Right. Or coming up with a schedule between, parents on, this is how many days you have, And the other beauty of settling or collaborating outside of court is that it could be much more customized and much more tailored. A judge is not going to be creative in their ruling, right? They're just going to be like, all right, you win, you lose, or you're going to pay this, you're going to pay that. But they can't come up with like a cool payment plan or some structure where like 2 years later this changes, or there's so much more that you can do if the lawyers work together rather than just letting the judge decide.
So does a judge have the power or the right to override the decision you and the other attorney made?
I mean, very rarely. Very rarely. If two lawyers came up with a decision,
Yeah.
I don't think I've really seen a judge overrule that, because that's the whole point of the system. The whole point of the system is made to settle. That's why only 1 to 5% of cases ever go to trial. And that's why it takes so long to get to trial. The whole point of the way that discovery and everything works is to try to get the parties to settle.
So I understand that the parties that win in the settlement, obviously you mentioned all parties win. I see how the clients win because it means less spending money for the lawyers, less court fees and all that.
Yeah.
But doesn't it hold back lawyers because they're not able to bill as much, because if you settle, that means you cut the whole case short.
Yeah, but that's the problem between like non-Muslim lawyers. I mean, there's good non-Muslim lawyers, right? But when you find a lawyer who just wants to bill for the sake of billing and go through the process for the sake of going through the process, you need to run away, right? Because the goal, you're putting in so much time and effort in the divorce case that's going to last 1 to 3 years, and you're forgetting about the rest of your life. Whereas my job is to help you transition to your new life, give you the tools necessary to get to the new life. And obviously, I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to advocate for you. I'm going to tell you what your rights are, what you can get. But you have to think about ROI. And that's my biggest thing, is that I'm not going to advise a client to do something where you spend $3,000 to get $3,000.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
What's nice, it seems as though, so since in your case, you've been doing this for a few years now, and you have a bunch of clients, alhamdulillah, right?
Yeah.
So that means that you don't have to run up people's bills anymore. You're at the
That's
point
true,
where
too.
you're always going to have another case lined up.
Yeah.
So people may think that, oh, this lawyer is busy, why should I go with him? But actually that could be an advantage for you if you're looking for a lawyer, because since he's so busy, he's not trying to waste your time, he's not trying to waste his own time.
Yeah.
So they're going to try to cut this case short as fast as possible.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, is that there are attorneys who are busy who are going to screw you over, right? But you have to find a law firm that has systems in place, has paralegals, has admin, has associates, has office managers, because now there's a system in place, and even if you can't reach the lawyer right then and there, then there's a paralegal who can give you your answer, or there's a paralegal working on your case who's going to bill half the hourly rate that your lawyer is. So I would actually be a little weary of solo attorneys who don't have any staff, because you're basically going to pay an attorney rate for them sending out mail. Like, that, it makes no sense, right? So I think with the type of situation that I have is, alhamdulillah, I do what I need to do. Talk to the other lawyer, go to court, negotiate, talk to you. But why do you need me to mail out your filings to the court? Why do you need me to gather information from you? You see what I'm saying? So that's a very big difference between, I would say, a good functioning law firm and just a lawyer. And the other thing I just want to add here is that, not only do I want to be the best lawyer, but I also want to have the best law firm, meaning that I want to have the best systems in place. I want to make sure that the clients, feel like their questions are being answered. They can reach somebody, a live representative, and get their questions answered.
I see. No, that's good to hear. So how, for your case, right? So you have a partner and then you have some staff members, right?
Yeah.
So how do you decide how to decipher cases between you and your partner?
So I guess it depends when they call. Okay, so when somebody calls, it's going to, if they don't care whether they have me or Osaf, it's going to be really who's the next person available. Okay, for the consultation. Many times people will call and ask for me personally. And again, it depends. Like, can you wait 3-4 days, or can you wait a week to talk to me for a consultation? Then if so, then all right, you're probably going to end up with me. But if you want, no, I need to talk to someone right away. Okay, if I'm too busy and my partner has an opening, then you're going to end up in his slot. So the thing about me and my partner is that we actually split everything 50-50. We don't have a eat what you kill type model, because I think that could lead to, people not getting the service that they need, right? So we make sure that if you need help, whoever's the first available, that's who you'll talk to.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So just to switch gears a little bit, a question I wanted to ask you is, So the three fields that us growing up always heard was doctor, lawyer, engineer, right? And mashallah, you got one of those categories,
Yeah,
right?
I guess. Yeah.
So with that, I often seen growing up that lawyers are looked at in a negative way sometimes. I know is a really prestigious job to have,
Yeah.
but especially in the Desi and Muslim community, a lot of lawyers are looked down upon. Why is that? And have you gotten um, any pushback for being a lawyer in the Muslim community?
So I think they always say lawyer liar, like that's like the main
Yeah.
thing that you see all the time. Like, oh, lawyers have to go and lie and stuff like that. I mean, I think it's just a misunderstanding of the field of law. It might be maybe the way that the court system is run in other countries. There's bribes going on, or I don't know. But I think that in America, you don't see that. You really do have to be smart. You really do have to work hard and know the law and how to talk to people and counsel people to be a good lawyer. So I haven't really had that much pushback. You'll just get those comments from random uncles, liar, I have heard from some people, like, hardcore, like, let's say HT guys or something like that, like, oh, what you're doing is haram because you're enforcing or you're pushing, gaffer laws and stuff like that. But no, I think people are realizing that we need to have lawyers, that we have a lot of doctors, and that helps people, but it doesn't necessarily help society, whereas lawyers can help society by understanding the intricacies of the court system and being able to educate the populace on how to avoid those same problems. For me, for example, whether that's these videos and helping people going through divorce or estate planning or whatever other areas, be it public safety or social justice or constitutional stuff, like, lawyers are going to be the one who can bring us forward to the next step.
I see. So is it hard for you to implement Sharia law to American law? Is it possible?
It's possible. Yeah, it's possible. It just takes both sides to want it to happen, right? So if only one side wants Islamic law to apply, it's not going to happen, right? Both of them have to.
Okay.
Otherwise, the American law is going to apply because you're submitting your case in the American system.
Right.
So obviously, American law is going to apply.
I see. Okay. So I guess my other kind of lighthearted question is, you mentioned off the. Have you ever seen when you? Let me ask this first. Split up your day to day. So, like, in one day, how often are you going to court? How often are you in the office? How often are you researching? Like, out of 100%, how would you split that pie?
Okay. I mean, maybe it'll be easier for me to kind of answer it by, like, what my day looks like. So typically every day I have court, and it'll be usually multiple court appearances in the morning. So right now it's easy because of Zoom. But let's say before what I would try to do is, like, if I'm going to be in DuPage County on a Monday, I'll try to stack like 2-3 cases that day so I can jump into different courtrooms and do whatever I need to do. Now because of Zoom, like, I could be 9 o'clock DuPage County, 9:30 Cook County, 10:15 Kane County, 11 o'clock hearing, somewhere else. So, like, all morning typically I'm going to be in court. If I have a trial, that will take my whole day. But typically the morning is all court time. I'll wake up at like 8:30, let's say. Court starts at 9. I'll be in court till 11:30. I work out, get ready, go to lunch. After lunch, then I'm in meetings then. So usually from 1:15 p.m. till like 6 p.m., I'm going to be in meetings back to back, whether it's new consultations, client meetings, meetings with the staff, training the staff, and I'll be doing that till, let's say 6 p.m. I try to get home by like 6:30. So the thing is that at this point in my career, there are times where I do have to do some drafting. There is time when I have to do research. But alhamdulillah, now I'm at a point where, like, we have a big staff, multiple paralegals, associates, law clerks, and they are the ones who are doing most of the back end work for me, in terms of writing, researching, gathering documents, and things like that. Unless I have a hearing or a trial, that's when I really dive in, prepare, and gather and organize kind of the work that everybody else has done.
Gotcha. Okay. That seems like you have some flexibility at your point now.
Yeah.
So what is the most fun part of being a lawyer, or in that day-to-day that you just described?
Yeah.
And what is the most mundane activity being a lawyer?
So the two things that I enjoy about being a lawyer is a hearing, like actually arguing in court, or like eliciting testimony from my client or from the other side, or like cross-examining them. So actually being in a hearing. And then the second thing is consultations, right? I love when I can get a new case, they tell me their story, I know exactly what's going to happen in their case, right? I know what's going to happen.
Interesting.
And I can basically tell them right then and there, like, this is what's going to happen. This is why you should hire me. And at this point, I don't really have to make that pitch either. But, like, this is what I can do for you. Let me know if you want to do it. And when they sign up, that's like, okay, I did my job. Like, that's what I enjoy, is new client signups and hearings.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And what's the most boring?
I mean, the boring is going to be writing, right? Writing just motions, looking through bank statements. But again, like, alhamdulillah, now it's been 10 years. I really don't have to do that as much. A lot of that's already been processed and given to me in a summary fashion for me to kind of take from there. Emails.
Yeah.
There are a lot of emails that I have to respond to. But I think that's every job.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What is some qualities that you enjoy when you're working with clients that they have?
Yeah.
And what are some bad qualities you see in clients that make it hard for you to work with?
So for clients, I think that having a little bit of knowledge coming in is helpful. Okay. Obviously, yes, it's my job to teach you. But I mean, if you watch like these videos, or you have some understanding of like, okay, yes, you're married in America, and your assets are gonna get divided.
Sure.
You're gonna do X, Y, Z.
Even if the man or the husband's financial provider.
Yeah. I mean, just understand that. Look, this is what's gonna happen, right? So that's one thing. The other thing is just being organized, right? Being organized in your finances, so that you're able to present that to me, simply. People who kind of trust me, right? Like, you're going to pay me a lot of money per hour to represent you in your case. So leave it up to me, right? Like, you trying to be your own lawyer is not a good idea.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say. I would say that being organized, trusting me, and knowing a little bit about it, whether you're doing that through me or through some other means.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it is important for them to come in with some knowledge so that they could obviously not
some
challenge
expectation.
you, but...
It's not even knowledge. It's more about have some expectations, or some expectation of reality, or some knowledge of reality. Like, you can't come in and think that you're gonna walk away with everything in your pocket.
Yeah.
In a divorce, that's just not gonna happen.
For sure. And how long should a client expect for this to finish?
I mean, on average, it takes a year.
A year?
Yeah.
Wow.
The average case takes about a year. But again, if it's uncontested, it could be a few months. If it's highly contested, it could be a few years. It just depends.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is not necessarily family law related. This is a law related question I have.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times when people like slipped in the store, or like they got chewed out by some employee at a restaurant or something like that,
Yeah.
the first thought is like, oh, I gotta sue them. I gotta sue.
Yeah.
So how is that even possible? Do people ever have like proper grounds to even make a legitimate case to sue someone?
The way that the system works is interesting, because you can sue anyone for anything, even if you have a crappy case, okay? And you have to go through so much time and effort and money to figure out whether it's like, for the determination of whether it's a legitimate case, So you can sue anyone for anything, man. Like, I know people who are so gung-ho, they'll just file a case, and the other side will just be like, all right, you know what? I'll just give you $5,000 because I'm going to go and pay $5,000 to my lawyer and go through like 1 year of litigation to see if this is going to stick. I'll just pay you $5,000.
Wow.
That's the problem with the system when you have a self-pay system rather than a loser-pay system. So you'll see frivolous lawsuits left, right, and center.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So with that, a lot of times in this situation, people hire like pro bono lawyers, right? So what is pro bono? The only thing that I think of when I think of pro bono is free.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Is free. Is that literally it? Is there
That's
anything else?
literally it. Yeah, I mean, pro bono just means for the public, right? In family law, we don't really do pro bono cases.
Okay.
I mean, our firm, I should say. There are other law firms that will represent like victims of domestic violence for free, or some other qualifying reason and to represent them for free. But on the average, you're not going to see too many pro bono divorce attorneys.
Okay. Do those clients have to meet some type of qualifications in order to be able to hire a pro bono lawyer, or anyone can get a pro bono lawyer?
No, it depends on the area, right? So, okay, so in criminal law, for example, you'll have the public defender, right? The public defender is free, is being provided by the state, but that's in criminal law. Personal injury, you don't pay. You only pay if you win, meaning that you're going to give a certain percentage from your winnings. Mm-hmm. Like if you're going to sue someone for breach of contract, no one's going to do that pro bono. You know, maybe if you're being evicted, maybe you can find someone who's going to do that for pro bono. But it just depends on each particular area of law is going to be a different determination. But for family law, like I said, it's usually domestic violence. It's usually going to be some domestic violence shelter or organization will represent you for free or for a reduced amount if you are a victim of domestic violence. Maybe a qualifier of not having enough money.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you are in court, and obviously that seems to be like the best part of being a lawyer, right? Is like getting to argue and present your case.
Yeah.
When the judge declares a conclusion to the case, have you ever seen any courtroom outbursts at all from either?
Oh my god.
Either by like the lawyer or from the client.
All the time, dude. Oh my. The thing about family law, it's so emotionally driven. Yeah. I've had cases where like, you know, I was just telling you this today, right? Like, I had a case where this guy he owned some like cell phone store, okay, and he put his mom's name on the store. Yeah. And basically, he wasn't paying child support, and he was trying to argue that, look, I only make like $20,000, $30,000. I have no money. I'm so poor. My mom's the owner, you know, whatever. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I actually called the mom to the stand, okay, and I start examining her, like, so you're the owner of the cell phone store. Okay, how much is the rent? And how many employees do you have? What's the payroll? How much do you pay in taxes?
Wow.
Like, how much inventory do you have? Who's your primary supplier? Like, asking all these business questions, right? And it was very, very clear that, okay, she has nothing to do with this business. She knows nothing about this business. That basically this guy can create his own salary and set his own salary.
Yeah.
And the judge, like, literally had him arrested right then and there because he was found in contempt of court.
Wow.
For not paying child support, and he got arrested. So he went off. Or, like, there'll be times where, like, you know, the guy wins custody and the girl just goes nuts, you know, like screaming and going crazy in court. And obviously, look, this is very emotional. And obviously your children being taken away from you or,
of course,
you know, whatever is very traumatic. But also, you know, from other perspectives where like guys lose or whatever, it's very emotional. And you'll definitely see emotional outbreaks. There was another guy who was like, you know, he wasn't able to see his kids. And he's like yelling at the judge, like, I'm going to die. I'm dying. Like he had cancer.
Wow.
And he's like, you're not letting me see my kid. I'm going to be dying. Like it's very emotional, bro.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So obviously your clients are going to be really emotional, right? So for you as a lawyer, have you had to like desensitize yourself from these cases and detach yourself from these cases? Like were you in the beginning of your law career, were you emotional and then as time went on you had to be less and less emotional, or do you still struggle with that?
No, I think I still struggle with it.
Yeah.
I think I've gotten better, but I still struggle with it. I mean, just the other day, man, like I was telling you, and I'm still like, I feel like I have like these nightmares about it. But I'm representing this girl who, you know, she got screwed. Okay, she got kicked out of her house, and it wasn't really the husband, it was the mother-in-law, okay? Kicked out of the house, and she took her kid with her, of course. But the thing is that the dad hasn't seen the child in a very, very long time. So I'm representing the girl. I'm fighting for the girl. I'm doing what I can for her. And we were on this Zoom call with me, my client, him, his attorney, and like we had a mediator. And what we're talking about is, okay, how can we arrange for dad to see the kid?
Right.
And the dad hadn't seen his kid in a year.
Wow.
And at the end of the call, the kid like is crying and comes up and sits on the mom's lap. Okay? And you could tell like the guy was just like he was so happy to see his kid, but he was so sad, like tearing up seeing his kid.
Wow.
And it just hit me, man. And it's not my client, it's the other side's client. Right. It's the other side client. And so much so that I actually like pinned, you know, this sounds really creepy, but I actually pinned his video on Zoom because like the emotion that he had on his face of like that happiness and that sadness, like I absolutely could relate to.
Sure.
And that just that is still bothering me.
Yeah.
You
So in
know?
that situation, were you able to collaborate with the opposing attorney to like to reach a settlement, or was that one
Yeah.
of the attorneys that were arguing
No,
against
no,
you?
we actually reached a settlement.
Okay, good.
We actually reached a settlement.
Good.
We arranged a time for the dad to see. I mean, the mom was also happy at the end of it too. Like
Okay.
we were able to arrange in a way where they were both happy. But again, like that emotional side of the children and moms and dads not seeing their kids still haunts me, man.
Yeah. No, for sure. And it seems similar to doctor stories, right? I'm
Yeah.
sure in the beginning of their career they were really emotional and it had to be tied.
Yeah.
But they had to detach themselves in order to become a good doctor. I'm sure
Yeah.
similar to being a lawyer too. So that's tough, man. And so I guess that stereotype that men really do get the short end of the stick in the justice system. You really see that firsthand, don't you?
Yeah, man. I think that the way that the laws were created, protected women, but by protecting women, you almost had to attack men. I would say, like for a guy to get custody is a fight. For a guy to get visitation is a fight, rather than a presumption. And so yeah, I do think that men have the short side of the stick as it relates to custody. When it comes to finances, I think you could make an argument like, okay, if you're going to use the American system, you're going to have this unity theory of marriage, then it's expected that if the girl like was a homemaker that okay, maybe the guy has to pay. So the financial stuff, it is what it is. That's not really what is going to really make that big of an impact or be that devastating. It's really the kid side. And I do think that men do have a harder time. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's sad to hear.
Yeah.
And you've seen judges who clearly favored the women in the case more than the men. You seen that?
See, it's favor, but like, again, the law is almost written that way.
Okay.
The law is almost written that way because, okay, now they used to have something called the tender years doctrine, which basically said that during the tender years, when the child is young, they should be with their mother. Okay? They kind of changed that theory to something called like primary attachment theory, where they say that when you're a child or a baby, you are attached to one parent, whether that's the guy or the girl. Mm. But usually, 99% of the time, that primary attachment is the mother.
Right.
And so you'll see for many times when, especially when you're getting divorced, when you have an infant, the dad might not get overnights.
Wow.
Right? Until the child is like 1 year old.
That's crazy.
Even though yeah, exactly. So they're using like these things like primary attachment theory and this theory and that theory, but it's still impacting the guy.
For sure.
So
how is it hard for you to? Do you have the chance to share your personal opinion, or do you try your best to stick with the law? Because like for this example, we as men, we try to push for our kids to see their dads because it's important for the development.
Yeah.
Do you input that in your cases that little bit of advice, or do you try to stay away?
Look, in the beginning, maybe not, but now I do. Okay. Now, like I've realized that, how they say counselor and advocate, or like counselor and attorney at law, right? I'm starting to take the counselor aspect of it very seriously because I've seen this so many times, and I do feel like I can tell my client, like, look, think about your kid, think about the future. I think I've done, enough research to see like the impact of custody, like different custody arrangements, and read enough reports from custody evaluators and psychiatrists and psychologists for what is in the best interest of the children. So yeah, I will push back on my clients. I will tell my clients, like, look, I think you're being unreasonable. I think that, you should give up on this, or let the dad see, or what about this, what about that? So I absolutely am giving my opinion more and more. And I think that that's what people are paying for. People want my opinion.
Right.
Right.
Was there a turning point in your career where you went from being just financially driven to society driven? Was there any moment in your career where you felt like me being a lawyer should be a bigger purpose than just getting money?
I think when I practicing family law, you get to a point where like if you only think about family law, you're going to be depressed. Yeah. There's a very easy burnout rate. And so I think I had to almost think about the society in order for me to continue on being a divorce attorney, right? Like these, like for the YouTube or the videos and stuff like that, like if it wasn't for this, if it wasn't for the Nikah Masterclass, if it wasn't for these videos, if it wasn't for me being able to understand people in society and be able to advise Muslims on how to handle divorce, I don't think I could do it. Right? The finance is great, right? Like I'm not like, I think we're going to talk about like the financial side of being a divorce attorney, but the financial side is great. But I'm sure like you could make just as much money being a doctor or being, some other type of business owner. So money is great, but in order to continue on, I think that you do have to, zoom out.
For sure. Yeah. So speaking of the financial aspect, right? So I'm sure everyone could relate to this who are lawyers. They probably have to pay a bunch of money to go to law school, right?
Yeah.
So what is the money you paid for law school eventually paid for itself in the career? So like, what's the perfect setup for a lawyer for them to make law school worth it?
So, I think that, people think about lawyers as being, well off. And I think that the thing about lawyers is that it's bimodal, right? Meaning that you have a bunch of people who make like 75,000 and then you have a bunch of people who make like buku, and I think it really depends on what type of personality you have, okay? I think that you're going to make a lot of money if you work at a big firm or if you are a entrepreneurial type, okay?
Okay.
So I consider myself the entrepreneurial type in the way that I'm not going to make that much money if I'm just a lawyer by myself. The way to make real money is, you bill, but you also have associates billing for you. You have paralegals billing for you. You have 5 to 10 other people who are billing for you, even if you're at home, even if you're on vacation, even if you're quote unquote sleeping, there's other people billing and making money for you.
Sure. And
kind of having that mentality of being a business owner, I think is the way to really make money. If you're just going to be some average lawyer, you could make 100, 110, 120. But if you really want to, get past like 250, 300, 500, like you really have to be business oriented, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if someone just was okay with being an employee their whole lives and just want to practice law for the love of it and not get into the entrepreneurial aspect, would you suggest them to not go towards law?
No, again, if you love law, then go to law school. But like, you're going to make, 160, 180. Yeah. But, like you're not going to make doctor money. Like I know like hospitalists make like 225 or 250, okay? Mm-hmm. So if you want to beat a hospitalist, then you got to be a little entrepreneurial, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So back to your day-to-day, right? Has there ever been any times where you had to go to jail or prison to talk to a client or a prospective client, and if so, how'd that go?
Yeah. I mean, in the beginning, I used to take a lot more criminal cases.
Yeah.
Now I do, as part of divorce cases, there are many domestic violence cases. I had this one client just very, very recently where he's going through divorce and he was charged with like 21 counts of sexual abuse and sexual molestation and all this crazy stuff. So he's in jail, okay? Yeah. And so I had to like get him to sign some divorce papers. And so usually when you go to the jail, like, you call ahead and like you go into this room and the guy will come, either he'll be behind, a glass, or if you arrange it ahead of time, you'll be in like a little room by yourself, just you and your client. But this time I had to go to Kane County and like, dude, it was freaking crazy. So you go into this room, okay? I'm like, doors open, and I like walk in and I'm like seeing the whole thing, okay? Like you see on TV.
Yeah.
The multiple stories, the little dining circle tables in the middle, and there's like 100 people right there. Like I'm literally like, people are just walking in front of me. Inmates just walking all around me. And I'm like meeting up with this guy just to have signed papers in the middle. And like other people are just walking by. And like, dude, it was the scariest thing because everybody's looking at me. I even saw this guy going like this.
No way.
Like basically like like shaving beard
Holy.
like thing. I'm like, oh my God, dude, what the hell am I doing here?
Wow.
That was scary. But yeah, I mean, that happens pretty often. Usually it's not a big deal. But this one was a big deal.
Wow, no, that sounds pretty intense.
Yeah.
So like, I know with doctors, a lot of times they're on call and they get calls like late at night, and then they have to run for an emergency. Has that ever happened to you, where you had to be on call and rush somewhere? Does that ever happen at all as a lawyer?
It does, but not for my clients is mostly for family, you know, our friends. Meaning that, like, I'm not a criminal lawyer. But if one of my friends gets arrested or one of our family members gets arrested or something like that, then yeah, they're going to call me. Yeah. I usually go. I usually try to help whatever I can do. Yeah. But alhamdulillah, now I don't take emergency calls. I don't give my clients my cell phone number. There's no emergency in family law. Like, if it's an emergency, you call 911, right? Sure. So alhamdulillah, I'm not on call. I usually try not to take calls on the weekends. I try not to take calls after, 6, 7 p.m. So alhamdulillah, the lifestyle has gotten much better, alhamdulillah.
Gotcha. No, that's good to hear. I mean, that's a bunch of questions I had. Yeah. How much more time do you have? I have one more.
No, please go.
So one question I want you to explain is, what is I want you to defend yourself a little bit and defend being a lawyer a little bit here. Yeah, yeah. So why are lawyers in the Muslim community so important? Why isn't, like, we have the doctors, we have the engineers, we have like the tech within the community, but why do you believe that there is a demand for Muslim lawyers? What benefit do you provide to society?
So I think we need Muslim lawyers in family law, first of all, just because you can bring in the Islamic cultural, the Islamic ethos, and Islamic law and character into practicing law and being able to pass that on to your clients so that people start thinking about the akhirah, they start thinking about Allah, they think about Islam when they're making these family law decisions. I'm hoping that when you come into my office, you've been to my office, but like Islamic art or like my beard or like sometimes I'm just, just who I am, right? Like, okay, I hope I remind you of Islam, okay? Mm-hmm. So I think if there's more Muslim lawyers, we can do that, number one. Number two is that Muslim lawyers are the only ones who understand what laws need to change for us to implement what we need to implement. Like, how do we even know what law needs to be passed so that we can implement our own Islamic courts or, change family law in a particular way? Or, from the civil rights perspective, being able to get off the no-fly list or come up with policies and procedures, even for not-for-profits or for boards or for governance of masjids, zoning for being able to build new masjids, politics, public policy. Like, these law is how society remains and functions. And if our people are not in that game, they don't have a say in how society functions, then we're going to be left behind. And the other thing is that the way that lawyers are trained is very different than any other field. We are trained to be analytical. We are trained to ask questions. We are trained to spot issues in a very abstract fashion, right? Like, it's very difficult for people to read something and be able to extrapolate and understand it from an abstract perspective and then apply it, right? And so lawyers, I think, have a unique skill to help us estate planning, family law, business law, and meld Islamic law with American law. So I think that there is a need for Muslim lawyers, especially when it comes to the type of law that I'm doing, like the personal, dealing with everyday people, like estate planning and divorce, business contracts, that's what we need.
Yeah, and you mentioned that business contracts, right? Yeah. America runs on small businesses, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
How do small businesses start? It starts with the lawyer, with the entrepreneur working together, right?
Exactly.
Another thing too that I realized when you were just the answer you just shared is on CNN and Fox, you see a lot of lawyers speaking on those formats or those platforms, right? Yeah. The two names that come to mind are Ahmed Rahab and Hassan Shibli, right?
Yeah. Ahmed Rahab's not a lawyer,
but he's involved in CARE, right?
Hassan Shibli is a lawyer,
right?
Yeah.
So those two individuals are obviously they're well spoken. They have some relation to law.
Yeah.
And those are the people who have a say in the Muslim world almost.
Yeah.
Right.
They represent.
Yeah,
because they know how to talk.
Exactly.
They know how to talk. They know how to speak. They know how to think about the consequences of certain actions and certain statements. So I think that lawyers are good at PR. Lawyers are good at explaining. They're good at teaching. They're good at representing. Yeah. And I do think that lawyers can be community leaders. Absolutely. Yeah.
For sure. No, that's good to hear. And I that's why I really look forward to this video is because a lot of people think that being a lawyer is like just what they see on TV or like on Suits, right?
Yeah.
But no one really knows the ins and outs. So I hope with this video, people are prepared before dealing with the lawyer, know what they do a little bit more. If people are interested in being a lawyer, I hope this video helps them to
Mashallah.
either inspire them or maybe just fade away from being a lawyer, because
Yeah.
both are beneficial, right?
No, for
Knowing
sure.
what you want and don't want. So
Absolutely.
that's basically all the questions I had. Maybe if people could comment more questions, we could do a part 2 if you're cool with it.
No, absolutely, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so-
Any questions, please leave them in the comments.
Yeah.
Would love to answer those. And I don't know how long this is, but listen, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. I enjoyed. How about you?
Yeah, of course, bro.
Sleep. Thank you for your time, bro.
Yeah, of course, man. Until next time.
Sir.
Inshallah.
Assalamu
Assalamu alaikum. We're gonna still hang
Yeah,
out
sure.
after this. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.